Hi and welcome or welcome back to The Books Are Everywhere. So today I am here to talk to you guys about my October wrap-up. I actually managed to read 18 books in October, which I'm incredibly proud of myself for doing. I did read a few graphic novels, which is probably what boosted it up there a little bit. However, I'm still really proud of the amount that I read, even though some of those were graphic novels, because it is a lot of books and my life has been quite busy recently. So the fact that I managed to read 18 books in October is honestly quite impressive to me. I also managed to read 2 series, I think, and get through most of the books that I wanted to read in autumn. I wrote down for October and November TBRs, so I'm pretty proud of myself overall. But I think as well we had quite a positive rating month, but we'll see as we go through these books. I feel like I did enjoy quite a lot of the books that I read in October, but let's find out. So I haven't actually kept all of the books that I read. Either I've passed them along or I borrowed them, so I will put covers up here if I did borrow them or if I don't have the book anymore. But the first one I read was On a Night Like This by Lindsay Kelk, which I borrowed from my boyfriend, and I really enjoyed it. This was my first Lindsay Kelk book. I don't really read a lot of adult contemporary romance, but I do enjoy it when I do pick it up, and this one was no different. I gave it 4.5 stars. I would highly recommend it if you are looking for something this Christmas to read and you do like kind of rom-com contemporaries. It made me laugh, it made me nearly cry, like I teared up. I absolutely rooted for the main character. I just found it so much fun. It was brilliant. We followed Fran Cooper, who was a personal assistant to a celebrity, and she kind of starts forming a friendship with this celebrity. They are on their way to this giant ball in which the singer that she's looking after is going to perform at, and she kind of just finds out a lot of stuff about herself on the way. She forms new friendships and relationships, and it was just so much fun and so entertaining, and I got through it so quickly. So I gave that one 4.5 stars and I really enjoyed it. The next one we had wasn't quite as enjoyable, and that was Emma by Jane Austen. This one was recommended to me by Courtney, and this is honestly my least favourite Jane Austen book so far. I think I only have 2 left to read, but this is long, guys. I've read all of Jane Austen's books so far on audio, I think, apart from Persuasion, and although I wouldn't say I disliked it, it just felt very disjointed. It felt very long. I was struggling to keep track of the characters. It just felt like there was so much going on. I did enjoy a lot about this. I do like a lot of Jane Austen's heroines, and this one was funny, as Jane Austen always is very witty with her writing. But this one basically follows kind of like a group of friends more than the other books. Like this one follows more of a group and kind of like parties and balls and things like that. But it was okay. It felt very frivolous. It felt very I don't know, I just didn't really click with it. I liked it, but I didn't love it, and I felt very similar to the movie when I saw the movie last year, early last year, the 2020 movie. I saw that one when it came out and I felt very similar. It just felt very disjointed and I didn't quite get on with it. I do really like Jane Austen's writing, and I wouldn't say this one was bad by any means, but it was my least favourite so far and I gave it 3 out of 5 stars. And next we have a series, so I'm going to talk about them all together, and that is the Tea Dragon Society Festival on Tapestry by Kay O'Neill. I absolutely adored this graphic novel series. So we have the first one, the second one, and the third one, and I think this is the complete series. I don't think there's going to be any more. It felt like it had kind of an ending, and I just absolutely adored these books. I'm so glad I read them. I'm so glad I read them in autumn, because the last one especially, as you can see, is very autumnal, and these follow a girl called Greta who is learning the lost art of looking after tea dragons, who are these adorable little creatures. As you can see here, they all have their own personalities. This was just absolutely beautiful. There is so many messages in these books that are just so well done, and this is just absolutely lovely. Honestly, the artwork is absolutely beautiful. I love the stories in there. I love the kind of lessons that we got from them. As you can see, there's some of the artwork. And also these books were so diverse. As well as having a non-binary author, we also had a character that had a hearing impediment, so they had sign language, which I love to see in things like this, graphic novels. I love how that was actually put across. There is a little guide in the front of the second one, I think, where that's introduced. And there was a character in a wheelchair. Like, there was just so much diversity. I absolutely love these books. I would highly recommend them to anybody if you think you're going to be interested in them. They were just so cute and perfect to read on an autumnal afternoon. And then we had The Once and Future Witches, which I have actually passed on to a friend, as I just didn't click with this one as much as I wanted to. This one follows three sisters who are in, I think it's 1863, if I'm remembering rightly, kind of mid-1800s, I think. And they are part of the suffragist movement, but obviously they are witches as well, so it goes into a lot of background of the witch trial and things like that. I really wanted to like this book. It was one of those books that I was so sure I was going to like. I've been looking forward to for so long, and I really wanted to love it, and I just didn't. Something just fell flat, something didn't click. I think it was the writing. Me and Alex Buddy read this book, and both of us said that the writing just did not work for us. I think it was told in third person present tense, and there was something about it that just made it feel very odd and didn't read very well to me. I still gave it 3 stars. I wouldn't say that I particularly didn't like it. There was just something that didn't really work. I would still recommend it to people if it's something you feel like you will enjoy, as I think there's definitely a chance that you will. However, I really thought that I would, and I didn't like it that much. But like, one of my colleagues absolutely loved it when she read it last year and rated it 5 stars. So each to their own. I love the fact that we all like different books, and I can recommend you something that I didn't really like, because honestly I would love to recommend this book. And I am going to read the 10,000 Doors of January. Wow, the 10,000 Jaws of January would be a different book, wouldn't it? The 10,000 Doors of January, also by Alex E. Harrow. I am going to be reading that one hopefully soon, by the end of the year. And I honestly think I'm going to like it, but I want to read something else by that author as well, but we will see. I also didn't say that I did rate all of the Tea Dragon books 5 stars, but I think that goes without saying. But I rated The Once and Future Witches 3 out of 5 stars. And then we have City of Ghosts and Tunnel of Bones and Bridge of Souls by Victoria Schwab. These ones me and Alex actually read as part of a readathon that we hosted, a read-along thing that we hosted in October, where we read each of these books and did live shows every week where we talked about them and we read the books. I read all of them in a day each. And I love them, they are so much fun. They follow 12-year-old Cassidy Blake, who can basically pull back the veil to communicate with ghosts. So Cassidy's parents are paranormal investigators, and they are filming a TV show all over the world. So in City of Ghosts they're in Paris, in Tunnel of Bones, no, in City of Ghosts they're in Edinburgh, in Tunnel of Bones they're in Paris, and in Bridge of Souls they're in New Orleans. I'm bunching these together because I did rate all of these books 4 stars. However, I do think they get slightly better as they go on. They have such an emotional depth to them, considering they are basically middle grade, very young teen books. Cassidy has a lot of moral things that are going on in her life, being best friends with a ghost being one of the big ones. Obviously the challenges that brings along as well. So there is a lot of stuff in here that I found really interesting to read about, a lot of moral dilemmas going on, a lot of emotion. The last one made me really emotional, but also these are slightly creepy as well. Just the right amount of creepy. There is more books in here that are scary. Well, there's one of the books that was quite scary, but these are just like a really nice level of like spookiness that you can really enjoy without actually being scared. However, when I was running and listening to these on audio, I did look behind me a couple of times because there is a little bit of spookiness to them. But I just absolutely love these books. I gave them 4 stars. There is a little bit of shallowness to them because they're middle grade. They're incredibly easy to read, but I would say they're some of the best middle grade books I've read. I really enjoyed them. And then I read another book that includes V. Schwab, and that is Vampires Never Get Old, Tales with Fresh Bite, which is an anthology with a lot of authors, with one of them being V. Schwab, and her story in this book is actually going to be made into a Netflix series, which I can definitely see happening. It is the last story in this one, so it definitely kept me in suspense for that, because one of the reasons I wanted to read this was for that story. I read this on audio and I'm so glad I did. It translated to audio so well. I really loved a lot of these stories. I did put a full breakdown with my review, for a separate review for every single story on my blog, so if you want to check that out, my blog is linked down below. When I read anthologies, I do like to try and go through every single story and rate them individually, because I find that they just vary so much. I gave this one 4 out of 5 stars overall, but obviously it did balance out from some being 5 stars, some being 4, and some being 3. I don't think any got lower than 3. There was some that I absolutely adored in here, and some that I just didn't enjoy so much, or felt very long, or felt very flat, but overall, absolutely love this book. It was such a good idea. It is flipping the things that we expect from vampire stories, of it being kind of male, able-bodied, cis-het vampires, and having fat vampire slayers and vampires in wheelchairs, and it's just amazing. I just absolutely loved it. I think this is such an amazing idea. And at the end of every story as well, the editor, so that's Zoraida Cordova and Natalie C. Parker, actually did a little bit of a non-fiction background to the vampire stories. They brought up a bit of the folklore that was maybe in one of the stories. So at the end of every story they would make some reference and do like a page of writing just on like the background of that particular story, which I really, really liked. I thought that gave it a really nice bit of depth to it. So I would highly recommend this one if you wanted to read something about vampires close to Halloween. Jump on this one, it is brilliant. I then read The Mercies by Kieron Milward Hargrave. This was a buddy read that I did with a few friends in October, and we very loosely buddy read this because we just kind of read it when it fit. But I really enjoyed this one as well. This one was a kind of bleak story, a bleak historical fiction story. I don't really read a lot of historical fiction, but this one actually was really good, and I'd heard some good things about it, so I was quite looking forward to picking this one up. And I love how feminist this one is. So we had one feminist book that didn't really work, and then we had this one which did work for me. I gave this one 4 out of 5 stars, and it follows a group of women who live on a Norwegian island, and basically all of the men die at sea. It's set in 1617, so it is quite historical, and it also follows a woman who is travelling from Scotland with her husband travels from Scotland to Bergen, marries her, and then they go to this Norwegian island, and he is basically being told to like sort these women out and that they need a man, when obviously they don't. They're doing great. But anyway, there is a lot of harrowing stuff in here. It is very bleak, but it's one of those books that it does propel the story forward. It is there for a reason. The stuff that happens is there for a reason, and I really enjoyed it. I thought it was really good. I honestly can't pinpoint that much that I didn't like about it. It was quite slow, and I did find it hard to kind of pick up, and I think that's probably my main critique with this one, because there was a lot of aspects that I just absolutely really liked, and I'm glad that we read this as a buddy read, because it's one that I have had on my shelves for a while, but it's not really one that I'm drawn to because I don't read much historical fiction. But this was a really, really positive experience, and I'm really enjoying doing this little book club with friends, so we do read things we wouldn't necessarily pick up otherwise. And then for the past couple of weeks I have been reading Jane Eyre by Charlotte Bronte. This was one that I chose when I decided to go back into the haunted house for Spookathon, and the first prompt on there was a comfort reread. I don't reread a lot of books, but this was one that I have been wanting to reread for a while. I wanted to reread it on audio. I've never read it on audio before. I've read this one 4 or 5 times in my life. Ever since I was 11 was the first time I read it, and I wanted to have a new experience. Me and my boyfriend did watch the 2011 film adaptation recently, which I had read before, I had seen before, but I wanted to watch that one again in autumn, so we watched that, and I decided to actually reread this one on audio, and I did really enjoy it. I am seeing this book differently as I grow older. There is a lot of issues that I didn't really notice when I was younger about the way Mr. Rochester comes across and does treat Jane. But basically, if you don't know the story of Jane Eyre, it is following a girl called Jane, who is an orphan, and she moves out of her aunt's house after her aunt doesn't treat her very well. Her aunt sends her to school. She lives there for 8 years, and then she becomes a governess, and she falls in love with her master of the house. And the story kind of goes from there. It is a gothic literature, which I absolutely love and is perfect for this season. I'm really enjoying reading the audiobook. I think this is one of the more accessible classics, and I am still really enjoying it. part of the reason that I really enjoyed this one this time was because of Jane. Jane is so strong. She's so strong-willed, she knows what is right, she knows what's wrong, and she knows when to step away from a situation. And that is something I admire so much about her, especially as she's a heroine from a story from the 1800s. Obviously we are seeing a lot of that in Jane Austen as well, but I just feel like I absolutely love Jane. I love how she stands up for herself and what she believes in, and that is why I am loving this book now. I feel like there is other reasons I loved it when I was younger, but now I have more of an insight into how Jane is feeling and what she's going through. I'm definitely enjoying it more because of that, and also I matched it with my jumper. That was completely like unplanned, but I just like how I'm wearing similar colours. But anyway, that's Jane Eyre. I think I haven't actually rated this one yet. Don't know if I'm going to go for a 5-star like I normally do or a 4.5. I think it's going to be a 5 because I honestly can't tell you what I don't like about this book other than the way Mr. Rochester acts and speaks sometimes, but I feel like that's just inherent at the part of the story, and I don't know, it's probably going to be a 5-star, but we'll see. I then picked up Medusa by Jessie Burton. This is a young adult retelling of Medusa and it's very feminist and I absolutely loved it. This one was sent to me by the publisher, so thank you to Bloomsbury for my copy. This one I believe is out now. I think it came out on the 28th of October and I really enjoyed it. I don't read a lot of Greek mythology, and when this one came up for request I thought yeah, I'll try it because I feel like reading it from a young adult perspective is going to be a lot more accessible to me. I've read a few adult Greek mythology retellings and I do struggle with them, so I thought this one was perfect, and it really was. This reads like a myth, which I really like. It read like a fable or a fairy tale and I really liked that, but it also has a lot of feminist stuff in here. There is a lot about accepting who you are, what you look like, and I really liked it. I think I gave this one 4 out of 5 stars. Wasn't quite a 5-star for me, but I would highly recommend it if you are looking for something like this. I then picked up Weathering With You Volume 2. This is a manga. I don't really read a lot of manga, but I will read anything Makoto Shinkai works on or writes. I've read the light novels of this, I've read the light novel of Your Name, I've read the manga of Your Name, and these are the ones that I haven't read yet. They've only just come out. There is only 3 volumes, which I really like about Makoto Shinkai's work, and there is also films, which is the reason I read this one. The first way I consumed this was through the media of film, and I just wanted to get a different perspective on this story, and I really liked this one. This is kind of the middle one, so it is kind of emotional. We've got that dip before the story picks up again, and it did make me a little bit tearful at the end, and I just really enjoyed this one. It was really fun to read. I like the idea of it coming across in manga slightly differently than it does in film, and yeah, it was just a lot of fun to read, and I would really recommend these films if you haven't. And I would really recommend these films if you haven't seen them already. I would also recommend the manga, but honestly I don't know, it's such a weird one because I don't know how I'd feel about this if I was reading the manga before knowing the original story. This is the 3rd way that I'm consuming the story, so it's a very hard one to judge, and I end up just giving these 5 stars because I love the story, even though it's hard to kind of judge the way it comes across. But this one follows a boy who runs away from home and ends up in Tokyo working as kind of like an assistant to a journalist, and he is going out interviewing people, and he is interviewing people who are claiming to be 100% genuine sunshine girls, basically meaning that they can bring the sunshine on their beck and call, and then he meets Hina, who is 100% sunshine girl, and he kind of has this experience with her. It follows climate change a lot and the effects that would have on Tokyo and is having on Tokyo and the real world, but it is just so good. I really love these stories. I'm loving following these people again, and I would highly recommend any way you could like to consume your media these stories. But this is volume 2. I will be reading volume 3 in November. And then we have Kingdom of the Wicked, which I actually haven't quite finished yet, but I will be finishing this one today, which is the first day of the month of November. So I've been buddy rereading this with a friend before we move on to Kingdom of the Cursed. I haven't read this one. I have read this one before with the same friend and somebody else, and we are going to be buddy reading Kingdom of the Cursed with a few of us, but I wanted to reread this one before because I've heard a few people basically say they got a bit confused at the start of Kingdom of the Cursed, and I thought it'd be best to reread this one because I genuinely just get confused with books because I generally just get confused with books, so I knew that it couldn't hurt to actually just give this one a quick reread. It is very fast-paced anyway, it's very easy to read, but also it's a reread so it's even quicker. However, I just haven't managed to finish this one yet because I didn't take it with us when we went away over the weekend, but I haven't got too much to go. I will finish this one today. But basically this one follows Amelia, who is a witch and she is living in Italy. I don't think this is meant to be set in present day, but it doesn't quite tell you. But anyway, she finds out that her sister has been murdered and she thinks that her sister has summoned a prince of hell or demon, and she's basically trying to find out what happened to her sister, and in that she gets kind of tied up with all of these prince of hell and demons and things like that. So it kind of follows on from that. I really like this story. It's kind of a mystery, romance, dark, paranormal kind of book, but I really like it. This is the same author as Stalking Jack the Ripper, which is my favourite series by her so far, but I am still really enjoying this. I'm very excited to read Kingdom of the Cursed in November. I think I'm going to give this one 4 stars, which is I think what I gave it the first time I read it. However, I am enjoying it slightly more, so we will see by the time I finish it if that goes up to 4.5. And we are nearly there. We have 3 books left. The next one being The Woman in Black by Suzanne Hill. I don't know why I say Suzanne every time. Susan Hill. Anyway, I read this one in one sitting, by practically just an evening. I really enjoyed it. It's 200 pages long, and Mark thought that I should read this one. It's one of the only books he said genuinely scared him. And although this did genuinely scare me, I think I was more prepared for it, so I wasn't as scared as I kind of expected to be. It was again a nice level of scariness, a lot more scary than City of Ghosts, but I wasn't too terrified by it. But I really liked this one. We follow Arthur, who is a solicitor, and he's basically sent by his boss to this old house which is called Ilmarsh House. The person who lived in there died and he has to go through everything that was in the house and sort everything out after her death. And when he gets to the house, mysterious things start happening. It is a classic English ghost story with so much atmosphere. It is absolutely soaked in atmosphere, which I absolutely loved. I feel like it gives such a great description of the location. It's very easy to visualise, which makes it quite scary, which I just really enjoyed. I'm so glad I read this very near Halloween. I read it after dark by candlelight in the bath and then in the dark, which it was great. I had a great experience with this book. Hopefully me and Mark are going to see the stage play at some point. I am just going to have to try and work up to that and see if I can actually brave it or not. But honestly, I think I'm going to give this one 5 out of 5 stars. I really enjoyed it. And then I read The Ocean at the End of the Lane, which again I borrowed from Mark, and I read this one in the night as well. Who knew? I sat down to read this one a couple of days before me and Mark saw the stage production of it on Saturday night, and I just carried on reading. I read it all in one night. It is about 330 pages, but I did read the illustrated version, so I think the non-illustrated version is a lot shorter than that, but I really enjoyed it. I thought it was so good. It is kind of like a whimsical story following a boy and his friend and the kind of hardships he goes through growing up, but it is very whimsical. It's very, from what I've heard, it's the best Neil Gaiman book to start with. I have not read a Neil Gaiman book before, so I'm glad I started with that one because I do feel like it was a very good one to start with. And yeah, it just follows this boy. At the start of the book we see him as an adult and then we see him as a child, and he goes through some harrowing things that kind of involve the supernatural and the paranormal, which I really enjoyed reading about. It was very kind of whimsical, but in a good way, a way that I could understand it and understand what was happening, and I must say it translated to stage incredibly well as well. They did it incredibly well and it just portrayed amazingly on stage, but I'm going to give it 4.5 stars. And then the last book I read in October was The Cousins by Kieron McManus, and I really enjoyed this one. I think it might be my favourite one by her so far, but it has been a while since I read Two Can Keep a Secret, which is the last one I read by the same author. This is by the author of One of Us is Lying and One of Us is Next, which has now been turned into a TV show for, I think, Acorn TV or Peacock TV, one of those American ones. But anyway, I really liked this one. I much prefer Kieron McManus's standalone works. I'm very excited to read You'll Be the Death of Me, which is her upcoming standalone, and I just absolutely love this. It was so good. I just kind of wish there was more murder, is my only thing. I went into this one with more expectations of like murder and gruesome stuff, which I feel like I definitely got from Two Can Keep a Secret. So when it kind of went more down the mystery side of things, I'm not saying we're disappointed, but it wasn't quite what I expected. But basically this one follows three cousins called the Cousins when they are kind of summoned to their grandmother's island, and they don't know why. They've been estranged from their grandmother, and their families have been estranged from their grandmother and each other basically their whole lives, and they don't really know what happened. So they're taken to their grandmother's island and things unravel from there. They don't really know why they're there or what's going to happen, but they do know that something mysterious happened around 25 years ago, and they end up kind of trying to unravel that. But I really liked this. As I said, it was more of a mystery than a kind of horror thriller that I expected, but I did still really enjoy it, and I think it might be my favourite. I don't know. It's been a while since I've read anything by her, but I'm very excited for her next one. But anyway, that is all of the books that I managed to read in October. 18 books. Thank you for sticking with me through this video if you did make it to the end. If you did enjoy this video, then please give it a like, comment and subscribe, and if you want to see my November TBR, that is up now in my November mini golf game TBR if you wanted to check that one out, and I will see you next time with another video. Bye!